let me start by explaining a little bit my background. So I'm a business economist and a materials engineer, but I'm also the child of two artists. So I was sort of raised half, let's say, on the educational side in a very analytical way, but at home, obviously, in a more creative environment. And this is probably the reason why I've always worked in industry, but typically in a function that is related to innovation, from let's say the incremental innovation back in the 90s to all the way the disruptive and venture corporate venturing and startups and this type of world. So in addition to that, I'm also I was an alpine ski racer. Very unusual for Belgium, but this is a little bit where I started to think about, okay, I've over the last 35 years, I've seen a tremendous change in glaciers. Winter has changed in the sense that it's getting shorter. There's less snow, or it's more extreme when there is snow. And you can work an entire career and think, I've made money for corporates or for my own company and so on, but the higher purpose was sort of missing. And so back in 2019, I thought, why not take this experience in let's say various positions of the materials value chain and working in innovation, but do something that also speaks to the heart, let's say. And so I decided, okay, let's find a formula where I can do something for to reduce emissions and to reduce plastic waste pollution, basically. And it led me to write a paper in the Journal of Business Chemistry in October 2019, which was basically aligning my own thoughts, from my experience working in the construction industry, the automotive industry, machining. I worked at Husky Injection Molding Systems, for instance. I worked at Caterpillar. Obviously, I was a EMEA director of Huntsman Polyurethanes, even spent some time at Deloitte as director of chemicals and sustainability. And in all of those positions, I sort of learned what works and what doesn't work in the sense of how do you get to a transformation of industry, and certainly in the sustainable way. I distilled a formula, if you will, on what could work in reality to help change over this industry. And this is basically the idea of molecules as a service. And so this year, Triple Helix Molecules as a Service was established, was created as a company, but it's basically the philosophy that I wrote about that we're putting into practice now. And you can best compare it to a material reincarnation. So if you want to reduce emissions and waste pollution, well, try to avoid waste in the first place and reuse molecules as much as possible. Keep them in the economy as long as it's energetically justifiable. So that's one element. And of course, the material value chain is a good one to start, because that's basically the physical stream that is giving us all the issues. And so we further developed the idea and looked at, okay, how does this need to be run? Because there's enough people writing reports, there's enough people talking and greenwashing. If you look at LinkedIn, everything is solved apparently. So we decided to focus on really doing something and showing the world that there is a new model that also works. So there is an alternative, and instead of convincing people, just show them. And so in that sense, our company is really an operational company. It's not a holding, but obviously there is a mother company called Triple Helix Molecules as a Service, where the Triple Helix is actually the old name of the company, but this refers to the Triple Helix innovation model. Which is basically the collaboration between knowledge institutions, the government, and the private sector. That's basically what it is. And I think that's a very good model, because each of the initiatives that we launch is always going to be an ecosystem-based company. So it's always going to be different players in different positions in the value chain that work together to provide a solution to the entire industry. So that's also very important. So each thing that we do is trying to solve a problem for an entire industry or an entire market, not just for one single company, in the sense that other companies cannot use this solution, because then you would limit your impact on the environment, for instance. So we call this a pre-competitive position. It also allows us as a small player to do something for large companies and not get blocked because they don't see us as a competitor. So that also helps. Now, you could say that all of this is basically summarized as waste to raw material. That's the position we have in this value chain. And obviously, this is not only about recycling or upcycling technology, which is obviously the first initiative. That's the PU pilot plant that I gave the pitch for in Antwerp. So this is taking polyurethane foams and making them chemically recyclable, and doing the work, the analysis of, okay, which contaminations are this from various sources, and how can we get to a decent, high quality product together. Um, that's the goal. But not everything is heavy assets or recycling operations. There's also a leg of investments and solutions that we create in terms of supply chain. Because as soon as you start working in the circular economy or in this philosophy, it's always a question of how do you get the material back in an efficient way, in a cost efficient way, of course, but also in an efficient way in terms of sorting and being able to distill high quality products out of it. And there's a lot of challenges there, and it has to be economically viable as well, of course. So that's a working area as well. The third area is the digital arena, let's say, because of course digital always allows industries today or businesses to scale up or do something more than they were used to in the past. And this is also true in our case. I always compare this to, the high-speed cameras back in the 90s in steel plants, for instance, doing detection of quality issues. Well, what we try to do is have a similar approach and use something that in real time can look into materials on a chemical level at contaminations coming in, for instance, in waste streams. That's typically a digital solution that we're trying to develop. But there's a couple of other things that we're working on. And then the fourth area that we're working on as a company is application technology. So building products or raw materials. So that's really the chemistry and the materials engineering side of things. So we're taking, for instance, stone waste, glass waste. We're taking lignin, rice husk. We're taking all sorts of waste streams, not interfering with the food chain, of course, and we're turning them into, for instance, building products or semi-finished chemicals, building blocks in the chemical industry. So that's a little bit what we're into. In short, well, I think innovation is a business of people. People need to talk to each other, need to be open to talk to each other. You need to be willing to share your ideas, and you need to be in a state of mind that says, I can do something on my own with my core business, but if I really want to make an impact and do something that's really out there in terms of challenge and ambition, probably you're not going to be able to do it on your own because it wouldn't be far-reaching enough. And by definition, you need to explore what your boundaries are and where these boundaries sort of border those of other players in the market. Because collaborating on your core business, that's very tricky and perhaps not even necessary, but it's very difficult in any way. But if you go outside of your comfort zone and your core capabilities, well, by definition, you could be supported by other players in the market, and you get to discussions that say, okay, this is how far we can go, this is how far you can go, but if we go together, we could make this possible, which is something that we cannot do on our own, but together we could pull this off. And it's exploring this field of, okay, what is out there in terms of challenge, and do we all have, let's say, a mix of capabilities that comes in the vicinity of, we should be able to pull this off together. And for that, you need a network, you need communication, you need an open mindset. And I think that is exactly what things like P&G initially with Connect and Develop and now with the InQbet campus are fostering. And obviously, I know a couple of the companies, like Milliken, for instance, is also a company that is very open in the chemical industry to work together and join ecosystems. So it's looking for these people and companies and skill sets, and try to use them in a way that we can build products and solutions and services to the market. In our case, to support sustainability and the circular economy.